Hi, and welcome back to Young at Heart. I'm sitting here with our Assistant Sheriff, Rick Marshall, and Fire Chief, Scott Lewis. They're going to give us some Halloween safety tips, right?
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming on the show. So what's probably the biggest safety tip we need to look at?
Boy, there's so many of them. I don't know if you can pick one over the other. You know, certain common sense things. Don't go into people's homes. Don't get into their cars. Wear bright reflective clothing. Have a plan of where you're going to be. Carry a cell phone, a flashlight. Walk in groups. Things for the parents. They can give their kids a meal before they go out so that they're full and they won't start eating the candy at random. You can go to the Nevada Sex Offenders website, and that'll tell you who the offenders are in your area. You can write their addresses down so you'll know not to go to those areas as well.
Right.
You know, there's just a lot of common sense things that come into play. Have a plan. If your kids are going to go out in groups, have them call home every half an hour or hour to tell you where they're at. Have designated areas where you're going. You know, watch when you cross streets. Drivers on Halloween, be careful because there's a lot of kids out that night, so slow down, look both ways before you accelerate. You know, there's just so many things that can be done. A good website to go to is Halloween-safety.com, and that has a lot of different information on a safe Halloween.
I'll tell you what, you know, that really is a good piece of advice because, as you say, common sense things. As a grandparent, if I was to take my grandchildren out for Halloween, they're not so common sense to me because I remember the days when you didn't have to worry. I mean, think about sex offenders that you said. I would never even think about that.
Correct.
And so those are some great things. So what was that website again?
It is Halloween-safety.com.
So if you're going to do anything with Halloween, taking the kids out or anything. Now, what about on the other end, those of us who will be having kids come to our homes? You know, and I do remember a time when we could go into people's homes. If they say, come on in, you know, you would just go in. But, of course, today you don't want to do those types of things. But on the other end, what are some of the safety things that we look at?
Well, I think from a law enforcement standpoint, we would never encourage our kids to go into a
Right,
stranger's
right,
house.
not today.
Only go to well-illuminated houses.
Right.
Try to know your environment. Don't go to strange areas, and make sure that, you know, children are 12 years of age are accompanied by an adult or have some type of supervision, much like Rick had mentioned. There's also other issues that we talk about. Historically, there's always a pedestrian motor vehicle accident that occurs on Halloween, and usually involving a child. So drivers have to use extreme care, not just even on the roadways, but just backing out of driveways, making sure that they discharge the children on a curbside rather than up to the street. But we've had so many strange things occur over the past several years. We had one child who was bit by a rattlesnake last year. So, you know, there's just those type of issues. Trips and falls are a huge component.
With costumes
and it's not always
also.
kids, but it's also the adults because they wear costumes that, you know, cover their eyes and they trip and fall. So face paints would be a good thing to exercise.
And those are really popular now.
They are.
There's so many different things that you can do with those.
And when we were growing up, we always used a candle in our jack-o'-lanterns or our carved pumpkins. And today, you know, there's so many different options available, either flashlights or little battery-powered candles.
Yeah, I love those.
Much safer. The antics that sometimes go on, some of the trick-or-treat type of thing. Anything using fire, make sure that you report it to the appropriate authorities. So just so many considerations.
Right, wow.
The other thing that you can do in a group is you can designate one person to be the lookout. Now, just about everybody carries a cell phone, and cell phones have cameras with them. So if you have one person designated as a lookout, they can be ready with their cell phone. If some of the antics that Chief Lewis talked about go on, they can snap a picture of the person or video it, absolutely. You know, and from a law enforcement standpoint, the best evidence is those pictures or those videos. You get a license plate or a picture of somebody coming up, harassing you or grabbing your candy and running. That video or photography, the photograph, is the best evidence, you know, and it's being aware of your surroundings. You mentioned earlier when we were kids, I remember when I was a kid trick-or-treating, you would go into people's house and you would have the little candy balls or you would have a little drink of punch or something like that, or they might take you through a scary thing that they had set up and then you'd go on to the next house. But it's a different world that we live in nowadays.
It's a different world. I know, and it's really interesting because we did a lot of things, and if I had my grandkids today, I'd be paranoid. I would go with them every second. But yeah, it's so different. I had a question I was thinking of, and now I lost my train of thought. But as far as fire safety, what are some of the other things that we need to watch out for besides the candle things?
Well, just even medical emergency wise, kids carving pumpkins, we usually get a lot of small knife wounds, things like that. So
right.
it's helpful if you have parents assist in the carving and make sure that it's done correctly. But kids that are too young, they have them draw the faces or whatever the pictures they want on their pumpkins, and they allow the parents or the elder siblings to carve them.
Oh, right. Well, 5-year-olds want to do their own.
Yeah, and they have a tendency to run around with those little knives.
And if you're going to have kids do it, a really, really simple thing is to get a drywall knife. It's not sharp, and it comes with little serrated edges that are not sharp at all. You can start the pumpkin and then use that one to cut it with.
Oh, that's a great idea.
That's the one my wife allows me to use.
Yes.
You're pretty dangerous.
Yeah, pretty dangerous.
Well, now as far as some of the treats that the kids get, I know we were joking last week, and Jim was saying, no, don't give suckers to kids. And I went home and asked my little granddaughter, I said, what's your favorite candy to get for Halloween? And she said suckers. So that shot that theory. But are there some precautions that people need to watch out for with the various candies that they'll be getting?
Unfortunately, when we were growing up, there were a lot of homemade treats. You would get popcorn balls, brownies, candied caramel apples, things like that. And then over the years, it's been make sure as a parent that you go through the candy before the kids get to it. Any unopened candies
Pull out all
recommended to be discarded. Well, the other thing is that when you go through it, you get
This
your pick
isn't
of the
good.
candy. Exactly.
I'll take that one. We'll put that aside.
But unless you know the people that make the homemade stuff,
Right,
it's recommended that you throw those out. It's, the store-bought stuff, you want to make sure that the packages are sealed, that there's no tears, no openings on them. Things of that nature.
And try to avoid distributing candies that would be swallow and choking hazards.
Oh, true.
And
Those are
especially
things
because
to-
you never know if the little kids will just kind of open it up on their own, much like Rick was describing, even before they get home.
Yeah, put it in their mouth and they start
And then
running
they
down
start
to the
running
next.
around.
Right,
Exactly. Next thing you know,
right.
you have a choking hazard.
Yeah, it's kind of scary when you think about it. And it's kind of a shame because I do like to make homemade candy. I like to do the decorative type things, and they make very special gifts and special treats. And I used to give them out to the neighborhood kids, who I knew. But
Yes.
you think about that, you said if somebody makes a homemade thing, just, basically throw it away. And that's really what I would recommend. But, being on the other end, I love to do that stuff. And it's a shame that you can't really do that anymore. But like you said, Rick, it's a different world we live in.
But you could use that approach more for if you're having a small home-based
home
group
party.
inside,
Yes.
things like that.
Yeah.
That they would have the faith and confidence because they know you well.
Right.
And there's a lot of places they can go that are deemed safe areas. I know
Right.
Artesia puts one on.
Right.
Pahrump Disability Outreach Program has their big festival coming up this weekend.
Oh, okay.
It's a 2-day weekend at Ian Deutsch Park. There's a small fee for entrance, but there's all types of things for the kids to do. And like Scott said, neighborhood, what's really good is if a neighborhood gets together and hosts something for their neighborhood.
Right.
You know everybody there, it's safe, and you look out for each other's kids.
Right. Well, and I know with some of the pumpkin carving, I think some of the churches are also doing that, where they get the kids all in a group and they
Yes.
have supervised pumpkin carving. Is the Nugget doing anything that you know of?
I'm uncertain.
I'm not sure.
I think they usually do
But the
something.
trunk or treats have always been successful.
Right.
And in various groups usually do those things and do a really good job.
Right, yeah, so some of, and I guess I'm sure they'll put different things in the newspaper. I know the thing in Ian Deutsch Park. One of the things, again, is stressing Halloween safety. I really want to get that website out there again so people will look that up. So Rick,
Okay.
would you give that to us one more time?
It is Halloween-safety.com, and one other thing that they stress on that website is when you buy your Halloween costume, make sure it's fire retardant.
Oh, right, they'll be seeing you.
The costume is such a big issue. Try to get something that has reflective material. If it's too dark in color, we don't have a lot of street lights throughout
Right,
the town.
right.
So it can certainly add to our challenges. And if they do hear any emergency vehicles approaching the area, just get way back up in the sidewalks. Cross only on established crosswalks.
Right.
Stay on the sidewalks in general. kids have a tendency to get very excited and run all over the place.
Right, and then they have to come and visit you. Well, it's been a pleasure, gentlemen, having you on the show, and
Thank
you gave
you.
us some great tips to think about that I wouldn't have even thought about. So hopefully we don't have any incidences. So thank you, and we will be right back.
And I'm going to leave.